Welcome back, everybody. My name is Nick Fire.
And I'm MarcTheTruth.
And this is the FireTruth Nerdcast. Today, on our Nerdcast, we're going to be talking about something that kind of shook nerd culture as a whole. I'm pretty sure the announcement came out last summer, around this time. And that was the entire reboot of the DC universe, or DCEU films. Because, for obvious reasons, if you've been watching them over the past 10 years...
Sucked.
Yeah, not great. So we're going to get into all that and talk about James Gunn's plans for the DCU, his slate, coming out over the next few years, and we'll probably compare it to Marvel, see how things stack up overall for them, how we feel about it, how we think about the individual movies. Before we get into that, though, as we like to in the beginning of this podcast, I want to ask Mark, how have you been this week?
This week's been good. We had some crazy storms the last few days.
Sure did.
And then we also had one last night. And last night we were going to bed. We knew the storms were coming. And it was just, they've been nonstop thunder and lightning the whole time. And I heard lightning hit, and I was like, that definitely struck something by us. And I didn't leave the house today because I was home with the kid. But Jenny, on our way home, or on our way to work, said that there was a tree that was completely just torched. So that was definitely what the lightning struck. Yeah, other than that, and then we have more storms coming tonight. So don't be surprised if our thing cuts out, or if we have to edit out thunder and lightning later into the podcast.
We might even get blown away by a tornado in the middle of this podcast, from what I hear. So
is that a possibility?
It supposedly is a possibility. It's supposed to be a tornado in my area, so I might die during this. But
well, and
I guess they might get a lot of views if I do die in the middle of it. So
I don't think it would air.
No, I'd want it to air.
Oh, you'd want it to air? Okay.
Yeah.
Also, on top of that,
my demise for views.
On top of that, I guess there was a earthquake by us somewhere last night too.
My mom was telling me about that earlier.
Yeah, we didn't feel anything, so I don't know.
Well, and we were supposed to record this podcast a couple days ago, but Mark's power was completely out. So
yeah.
How did that go?
How it goes as good as it normally goes. So our power is weird. We'll have a day where there's a little bit of rain, and it'll randomly go out. And then we'll have a night like we had before where it doesn't go out at all. This time it did. But last night, nothing happened whatsoever. We even had lightning that struck like 3 houses over, and we didn't lose anything. It's weird. There's times where we'll go out and we'll come back and our power was out because the timer on the oven is blinking. It's like, when the fucking why did that happen?
Classic way of finding out how the power.
Mm-hmm. One of the downsides of living in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, that's gotta be. That has to be. Even though it looks like a nice area, and I love driving over to your house in cornfields and 1-lane streets, but I don't think I could go too long without having like
internet,
a local pizza place, and internet and power. So, but then again, for the prices homes are these days, maybe that's the only choice you have.
Yeah.
I might have to go get a cabin in the middle of the desert at this point.
I don't know about the desert. That's a completely different story. What about you, though? Anything new?
Not really. Just my continual audio issues. First episode, I was too loud. Second episode, I was so worried about being too loud that I was too damn quiet. I thought my mic sounded good. And it was funny because literally if you listen back to the last podcast, I'm sitting there like, I hope to sound more professional, and it sounds way worse than last year. What the hell am I talking about?
The last episode.
So it's like, I don't know. Hopefully I can get my ears and my audio straight. It's just been very frustrating. But I promise everybody I will get it right. And, you know, even if the audio isn't the best on the first 2 episodes, I think we've had some good content. So,
yeah.
if you can just stick around for the content and not my beautiful voice, hopefully it will be good. Anyways.
Also, you might be the only one that notices the issue with your audio.
No, hell no. There's no way. I listen to so many podcasts. Our podcast sounds very bootleg.
No, it'll get better.
It'll get better. This is our very first time Mark and I even doing anything computer related like this. So cut us some slack, please.
Yeah, it'll get better.
It'll definitely get better as we grow and just get better at it. But that's really all I've been up to, just being frustrated with my audio. I'm also a perfectionist, so that also doesn't help when I have to just suck up my pride and just, okay, this is what it's going to be. But hey, I think we're doing pretty good on YouTube and views so far for a very beginning podcast, so I'm pretty happy with how it's turned out so far.
Yeah.
And I enjoy doing it.
Exactly,
so
I'm enjoying doing it.
I'm definitely having fun, so that's really it.
Yeah. I don't know about you. One of my favorite things, we only have 2 episodes out so far, but the first episode for the Accolade, we came out with that, and then afterwards, I'll rewatch an episode or I'll watch the next episode, and then I'm like, oh shit, I picked up on this, but I didn't mention it.
Yeah, right.
Or something that I had a question about will make more sense. It's like, oh, I should have said that.
Yeah, definitely. I can't think of it right now this second, but I've definitely had a few things that I was like, damn, I wish I would have said that.
Yeah.
But hey, we got one more Acolyte podcast to come next week, so
yeah,
hopefully we don't forget anything.
I don't think so. I have a very long note list.
Oh, I'm sure you do. That Star Wars is literally Mark's favorite thing ever. So I'm sure he's going to catch things that I couldn't even think of. But that's not about Star Wars this week. This week is about DCU. And DC is one of my favorites. I've actually always preferred DC to Marvel, but just not the films. The only DC movies I really like are the Batman, the Dark Knight trilogy. Outside of those, I really can't say any other DC movies I really liked. And to get into it first, I wanted to ask you, over the last 10 years, we've had the Snyderverse films, starting with Man of Steel. And we're going to be rebooting all of that next year, starting with Superman 2025. So I just wanted to ask, what is your opinion on the Snyderverse? Just give your little brief opinion, because I would like to do a whole episode on it at some point.
On the whole verse?
Yeah, on the whole thing. But for now, we need to kind of start with our feelings on it.
Yeah. There was movies that were good, but there's a lot more movies that were bad. And for me, I don't like Superman. So those movies, I didn't see any of them.
Oh, you didn't even see Man of Steel?
No.
Oh my God.
That's how much I dislike Superman.
Wow.
But for the sake of the podcast, I will see the new one. But I don't know. My biggest complaint with that whole thing was they tried to compete too quickly and catch up to Marvel.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. That was their biggest downfall.
They blew their wad too quick. Marvel built up for years to get to where they were, and they just kind of jumped in all right, do this. There's no backstory to the characters. They're kind of just there. And then they jumped into a huge battle.
I honestly think they felt that, our characters are... I mean, honestly, out of all superheroes, Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman are 3 of the most iconic of all time. And I think Snyder or whoever was behind that decision just felt that our heroes, everybody already knows our heroes. So
we don't need. Yeah, they felt like they didn't need to build anything.
It's not how it works, though.
No, my other biggest
give us a reason to care about the actors and the characters they're portraying.
Yeah.
Just because everybody likes Wonder Woman doesn't mean everybody likes Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman.
Exactly. Like, there's people that probably like the original, like, TV series that they had.
Yeah, Linda Carter.
That version.
This isn't Linda Carter. This is a different.
No.
This is a new Wonder Woman you have to sell to a new audience.
Yeah, you have. They didn't sell anything. They just kind of threw it out.
No, they didn't sell shit.
My other biggest complaint I had with those movies is they came out early 2020s.
I think they started in 2013.
Okay, so 2013 is when they started. Why was the CGI like it came out of a fucking library? And someone was on there.
The CGI has been god awful throughout all of DC's films.
I don't understand.
You'd think Warner Brothers would have much better animators than they.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened. I don't know if it's... See, one of my biggest issues with the Snyderverse has been its color palette is too dark. It looks like you're watching it through like a black filter. The colors look like saturated almost.
They look muted.
I hated that. I always thought that made the movies look dull and boring. And Superman specifically is a movie that shouldn't be looking dull and boring. It should be looking colorful and hopeful.
Yeah. Because he's the everyday superhero. It shouldn't be...
Yeah, he's like your iconic like hero. Just your iconic everyman hero that wants to do good by everybody. It was weird that he was in this dark film. Mm-hmm. And then I like Man of Steel for the most part. That was one of the movies I actually did
love the actor.
Yeah, Henry Cavill is awesome. I love Henry Cavill. But and his portrayal of Superman wasn't his fault. It was the writers and the directors and all the above.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know, my opinion on the Snyderverse, like, I enjoyed Man of Steel when it came out. I liked it for what it was because I thought Zod was cool. I liked the way they did Krypton and all that. But it all started falling apart for me at Batman versus Superman.
Yeah.
I remember being really excited for that movie because it was something different. And it was being based on, I don't know why I can't think of the title right now, a famous comic book. I think The Dark Knight Returns, it was called, where Batman fights Superman, and it's this iconic fight. But the movie itself just sucked. There were so many awful plot points and things that didn't even make sense.
Yeah, it had no... Like, it had a direction, but I feel like the direction wasn't clear.
No, and then they had that stupid Martha scene.
Yeah.
Oh, God. Just talking about that movie pisses me off.
My other biggest complaint was Suicide Squad.
Suicide Squad... I didn't hate that movie.
I didn't hate the movie. The thing I hated was you gave us this version of Joker, and you had the perfect opportunity to make it done right, and then you're just like, yeah, no, that's not what it is. Like, he's just a flashy Joker.
Yeah, it was stupid. I always said it should have been Robin.
Exactly.
But no.
But they missed that opportunity.
Completely. That would have been amazing.
Like, even if they didn't think of that idea with all the fans that were pushing it, like, you could have easily flipped that part in the script and made it work.
And it made sense because we literally saw in Batman vs. Superman that Jason Todd's Robin got tortured by the Joker.
Exactly.
They already had that in the films. I don't know if something changed or they just never got far enough to do that, but it was...
Or they forgot they did it.
It was very disjointed in the disconnected universe. Mm-hmm. Like I said, I really didn't like a lot of it.
No. And like the movies when they were coming out, like I wanted them to work, but they just didn't.
No, they didn't. The only one... There's only two, actually, that I enjoyed out of all of them. And would like watch them again right now if you wanted to, was I really liked the Wonder Woman movie. Mm-hmm. I thought that was pretty good.
Yeah, like that was the beginning where it was like, okay, they're going to do this right. They're going to build these characters. And then it kind of just fell to the wayside.
I also, even though I wouldn't necessarily say it's like this amazing film, I liked Aquaman for what it was.
The first one, yeah.
The first, I see, that's the thing though, is I never saw Wonder Woman 1984 or Aquaman 2 because by the time those films came out, they had already announced they were going to reboot. So it was like, who cares?
So they're kind of,
why would I want to watch this? Unfortunately, I heard 84 sucked anyways.
Yeah, that's what I heard.
I never heard anything about Aquaman 2, but
I don't think it was bad.
Yeah, I can't see it because it wasn't Black Manta the main villain of that one. So I don't know. I liked Aquaman because I thought it was like an adventure, and I liked how they made Atlantis kind of like sci-fi-ish, like space underwater. That was awesome.
And let's be honest, the real reason it seemed like it was going to be good was because it wasn't just the plain vanilla Aquaman.
Right, because the plain vanilla Aquaman sucks.
Yeah.
Like blonde little church boy. No.
Yeah.
I don't want to see. I want to see my tribal Samoan looking tribal chief. Aquaman.
Yeah.
I don't know. I never. Or if you're gonna make the blonde one, do the blonde one from the Justice League animated series where he looked like a pirate and had a hook for a hand.
Yeah, you can do
that one was
if
pretty
you're gonna go vanilla-ish.
And if they do Aquaman this time around, that's probably the way they should go about it, just to make it different from Jason Momoa.
Right. You can't. I don't. As much as people probably like to have Jason Momoa come back, like you can't. You're rebooting it. You're restarting. And then maybe along the line somewhere you can go the route that Marvel's going now where, there's multiple different universes and they can all meet, but...
Yeah. But until then, I just didn't like the Snyderverse. I kind of wanted to talk about how you said... You already talked about how they rushed it. Like, Wonder Woman and all the other heroes were introduced in Batman vs. Superman, the second film in the series. And the third film in the series was Justice League. Which is insane, but
that they just tried to compete way too fast,
right? And not only that, but they just, if you really look at what they did, all they did was copy Marvel left and right.
Yeah,
like the main villain they were building up to for Justice League, because I originally remember they were going to do Justice League Part 1 and Part 2, and they were building up, like Part 1 was building up to Darkseid. But if you know anything about Darkseid, he's just a copy of Thanos.
Pretty much.
That's all Marvel was doing. Like, why are you going to use the same villain as Thanos?
Granted, I think, like, historically, there's a lot of Marvel characters that got copied from DC. But for the regards of this, like, they just tried to jump to be like, okay, Thanos was super successful. That whole Infinity Saga was really successful. Let's try to do our version of that with what we have way too quickly.
No, for sure. And it's not like a thing of who copied who, but it's just perception-wise, people who don't know who copied who are going to think, who the hell is this copycat Thanos?
Exactly.
It's like, it's all about the perspective of like the casual audience who is going to see these movies. And if you just bring in this character who he was the guy who created Darkseid is the same guy who created Thanos for Marvel. He just made a new Thanos for DC. And it's like, DC has so many characters. Why did you start with him?
That should have been a character you built to.
Yeah, that should have been something you don't do till like a phase 5 or 6.
Yeah.
Not the first big villain to come in, especially when Marvel's building up to Thanos. And not only that, but then DC copied the multiverse stuff.
Yeah.
It was like, can you guys like do your own idea?
Which
I know like DC probably I think started all that, but
yeah, which is all fine. Like you have that written in your comics, like that's already there, but you jumped the gun to it way too quickly. Like we didn't get to that with Marvel in 3 movies.
Long time.
We got to that very gradually. Like they threw in Marvel threw in characters that no one knew that added to the story.
Exactly. Like DC just was like, oh, well, let me copy Marvel's homework. That's working in the MCU. Let's try it here.
Which in hindsight, like right now Marvel's in a place where it's like, okay, like people are losing interest. DC, if this does work right, could be that revamp of superhero movies. And
that's what I've been saying since Endgame. After Endgame, I was one of the first people to say this is it for MCU. The MCU needs to take a break. They need to go away for 3 or 4 years because people are going to get tired of this now.
Yeah.
Because they just kept pumping it out. Like, you killed Iron Man. You wrote out Captain America. You can't just jump into the next thing because those are the characters that people are really there to see.
Exactly. Like, they have to take some time and build to that next wave of characters that people are going to grasp to and understand. And that's where I think DC, if they do this right, they could jump in and be like, okay, everyone's going to revert to DC now because they're doing and building everything correctly.
That's an amazing point. And that's exactly what I was going to say, is if DC can get their shit right, they can really take over the superhero scene. Because Marvel is oversaturated now. People are tired of it. The characters that they really cared about are gone. And, there's some that are still left, obviously. But I don't think it helped, unfortunately, that Chadwick, unfortunately died.
Yeah.
That really,
because he was going to be a big part of the next wave.
Oh, for sure.
And now they have to go and kind of redo that. Yeah,
they had to redo. I still haven't seen Black Panther 2 because I just wasn't really that interested in it without him. Mm-hmm. But yeah, DC has a chance to come back, but they just need to get better people in the right places. Even the Flash. Did you go see the Flash movie?
No, I watched it at home, I think.
Okay, but you've seen it.
Yeah.
So I went on Father's Day with my dad to go see that movie because, Michael Keaton was in it. And my dad used to watch the Michael Keaton Batmans when I was a kid. So I was like, oh, that's a good Father's Day present, is to take my dad to go see this with Michael Keaton's return. Movie sucked. Mm-hmm. That movie was garbage. That's what the best you can do with the Flashpoint. Flashpoint is literally one of the greatest events in nerd history, and they fucked it up
because they wanted
to do was
to
Zod.
Rush.
And then it didn't even really, they said, oh, this is going to reset everything. What? It didn't do shit. What did it do? George Clooney was back. Stupid.
Worst Batman ever.
Yeah, seriously. That was the last person I wanted to see. I'm just overall happy that this miserable universe is rid of.
Yeah. Let's just hope that this next wave is done right and they take the time with it that they need to take.
I hope so. But before we get into the new films that are slated to come out, Mark and I have been talking some shit here about the Snyderverse. I want to give everybody a brief history and rundown of what happened, so everybody's on the same page and everybody knows why the DCEU got so messed up. It started with Zack Snyder. He started it, he launched it in 2013, like we said, with the release of Man of Steel. By 2016, after the audience's negative reaction to Batman vs. Superman, they had to bring in famous comic writer Jeff Johns and John Berg. They were chosen to oversee things, but clearly that didn't really help either. Zack Snyder had to run off because I think something happened in his personal life in 2017 for Justice League, and it had a disastrous production. The reception was awful. People absolutely hated that movie, and what was weird about it was ended up being directed by Joss Whedon, which was the guy who made the first Avengers movie. Mm-hmm. But I heard people said he was an asshole, and I don't know. I mean, I really don't know much about the situation, but you can see here, by the third film, we're switching directors, things are already falling apart, and after continuous flops, DC tried distancing itself from the interconnectivity of its movies And that's when they started focusing more on the solo stories like Wonder Woman, Aquaman, Joker, and the new, like, the Batman films. Which, Joker and the Batman are two of the best DC movies ever, in my opinion.
Yes.
So they started to kind of turn things around there in that, like, late 2010s decade. But Walter Hamada, he was chosen to be the new overseer after they kicked out Snyder, Cavill, and Affleck. But in 2021, some tragedy hit because Warner Media that was in 2022. In 2022, Warner Media was merging with Discovery. A new CEO came in, disagreed with Hamada's direction, even though things were starting to turn around a little bit.
Yeah, he was bringing it on the up.
You know, he canceled the Batgirl film, which was done. Like, this movie was done, and it was supposed to come out on Max, and they just canceled it. And just vaulted it, and we'll never see it. I mean, I don't know, maybe it was that bad. I just can't see any issue. Like, why would you, even if it's bad, why would you do that?
Especially if it's done.
Like, the movies already sucked, bro. We already didn't like it. Now, taking things a year back, in 2021, they came out with the Snyder Cut. Did you ever watch that, Mark?
Yes.
I thought it's
very long. Yeah, it was very long.
Like, I remember when it came out, people were praising it. It was the greatest thing that ever happened. And I was like, what are you people seeing? This movie still sucks. Yeah, it's better. But, you know, it's still shit. It's like shining up a turd.
Yeah, it still comes back to the main point that they rushed.
It just, I don't know. I didn't like it. If you liked it, you know, everybody has a different opinion, but maybe I was already so checked out I didn't care. But anywho, after the Snyderverse, the DCU expanded with a new director, James Gunn, who was controversially fired from Marvel during the production of Guardians of the Galaxy 3. And he came in to helm a soft reboot of the Suicide Squad and do a spin-off Peacemaker series for HBO Max. Both movies, I think Peacemaker was pretty successful, but I remember hearing the Suicide Squad flopped. I think people just didn't care.
No. I think it was one of those things that I think Peacemaker did very well, but I think at that point people were checked out with the movies.
Yeah, the movies, I think people were just checked out, especially because they already knew DC was looking to reboot somehow.
Mm-hmm.
So this kind of brings us to something that happened recently. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, he came in to help soft reboot the DCU with Black Adam. He came in with this big idea. Let's do Black Adam versus Superman. Let's bring Henry Cavill back, do this big, gigantic battle. And he tried helping save the DCEU, but then Black Adam flopped.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, after an entire decade of flops, or just awfully received films, David Zaslav hired James Gunn, the guy who made the Suicide Squad, Peacemaker, and the famous Guardians of the Galaxy films for MCU, and Peter Safran as co-CEOs to lead the DC universe in a new direction. And the Flash movie, which we just talked about, was supposed to reset the DCEU. And independent films like the Joker and the Batman would still exist, but they would end up becoming known as DC Elseworld stories in this new universe. So those take place in a separate universe. Now let's get into James Gunn's Chapter 1, Gods and Monsters. And I want to talk about James Gunn a little bit before we start, because just kind of knowing James Gunn, like, how do you feel about him leading and taking charge? Do you really know a lot about him?
I mean, I know his success with the Guardians of the Galaxy. I don't know too much about what he did that got him fired. I know it was fairly controversial, and there was people that were kind of parted on both sides that were like, well, I still support him and like didn't want to do Guardians of the Galaxy without him. But I think he knows, not necessarily entirely what he's doing, because he knew what he was doing with Guardians of the Galaxy. No one really knew who they were. So you have a clean slate to kind of do what you want.
You have to give him a lot of credit for the fact that Guardians of the Galaxy were like F-level characters.
And he made them A-list.
He made them A-list. Like, you really have to give the man a ton of credit for that.
Which, that being said, now he's in a situation where like he is going to have those F-list characters that he can make A-list and make them household name characters. But you have the A-list characters of DC that you have to do the justice of. And I hope that he can do it, because DC for far too long has been way behind. So I think he can. I think he knows what he's doing. If he's given the situation where, like, you know, a year after the movies come out, he doesn't get fired and then we have to start all over, as long as they let him keep going, I think he can build to something that's going to work.
They do need to let him build, and they need to just kind of trust the vision.
And, like, they have to accept the fact that, like, there's some things on this list that, just looking at the bare bones of what we know of it, look like they're not going to be successful. Like, they're going to flop. That's going to happen. There was movies with Marvel that flopped or weren't entirely living up to expectations, but you have to kind of just keep with it and keep going.
Difference is, I think, with MCU, I'm pretty sure all of those movies were successful in some way.
Yeah, they were blockbuster successful, but there was movies that, like the Multiverse of Madness, like that had so many expectations.
Well, that's more of the modern Marvel. Modern Marvel is kind of starting to flop, but if you look at like the Infinity Saga, almost every single one of those movies was really successful.
Yeah.
There was a few in there I didn't care for. Like, I personally didn't like Ant-Man and the Wasp. I thought that movie kind of sucked. But
yeah. Other
than that, you know.
Isn't the second Iron Man the one that everyone hated?
You know what? I don't know why everyone hates that movie.
Yeah, I don't know either.
I could see if you hated Iron Man 3.
You know what?
Wasn't really that good, but
the movie that started it was the first Avengers movie. I didn't like that movie.
Really?
No.
Wow, that's shocking. That's one of my favorites.
Yeah, I just thought it was boring.
Wow.
That's just me.
That's amazing to hear.
But that's just my one perspective. But there's also multiple movies that came out during the time that people had the same perspective on, that they just thought they flopped in their own opinion. That's gonna happen with the DC reboot.
Oh, yeah.
You have to just kind of push past it. You can't look at it and be like, okay, well, he flopped like Aquaman and all these other movies. Like, let's just get rid of him and start over. Like, you gotta kind of let him go. Let him, give him the reins and then cut him loose.
And going over this list and kind of watching the video, I like that he's going to focus on the supernatural elements of DC, because that's something that Marvel, besides Doctor Strange, isn't focusing on. If DC wants to succeed, they need to be different than, not similar to, what Marvel is doing this time.
And even with Marvel, like, claiming that they're going to build that with certain characters, DC still has that front runner aspect of it, because it hasn't really been done. And
now maybe
be
DC
the first
can
to the
get to
game.
a point where they're the first one to do something, and when Marvel does it, people are gonna be like, Marvel's just copying.
Yeah, even though a lot of the movies that Marvel plans to do have already come out, basically like DC has, and they're just kind of rebooting it. They might be the one that takes that front runner because they're the first to go that route.
Now, what I want to say about James Gunn, because I gotta be honest, I didn't like his version of the Suicide Squad. I thought that movie was worse than the first one. And I haven't really watched The Peacemaker all the way.
I've only seen bits and pieces.
I've seen the first couple episodes and I really couldn't get into it. And something I've kind of noticed with James Gunn is, like, James Gunn, he's good for this because he's a visionary. He can see things that other people can't. And he's kind of what I like to call an idea man. He thinks outside the box. and he can give you like 1,000 unique ideas that you've never even thought about or heard of. But being an idea man can also be to his detriment. And I want to use like a couple of examples, because most of the time idea men think so far outside the box that they lose the concept of the cohesive vision
Of
because
what
they're
their
trying to
goal
fit
is.
so much in there. Like they think of so many ideas, they want to fit so much in, they kind of lose grasp of what they're really trying to tell. And I'm skeptical if James Gunn can be a Kevin Feige for DC, simply because his best work was under Kevin Feige. Like,
True.
he had a filter for those 1,000,001 ideas. He had someone to run them by who could kind of take out the bad, take the good,
Yeah,
and
you could
not
tell
just
him.
let him have free reign with whatever he wants to do.
Yeah, you could tell him what's going to fit the big vision and what's not.
Now, a couple of examples I want to use for idea men. Mark, you might know this one because Mark and I are very big wrestling fans. James Gunn, to me, now this isn't an insult, James Gunn. If you hear this, I'm sorry. You're not as much of a person, big personality-wise as this guy, but I compare James Gunn to Vince Russo. Now,
Yep.
Vince Russo is a legendary wrestling writer. He was the force behind most, or at least the bigger aspects of the Attitude Era. After he left WWE, though, he went to WCW, and as much as, to his chagrin of anybody saying this, I'm going to say it because as much as I've studied wrestling history, I think it's true. Without the filter of Vince McMahon, he wrote some of the worst garbage on television, on WCW and TNA.
Yes.
Because he's an idea man. He can give you 1,000,000 ideas, but if you let him do all 1,000,000 ideas, it's not going to be pretty. And I think James Gunn is kind of similar. They even have similar raunchy like humor and ideas. Like we talked about once on one of the other podcasts, like not everything in the Attitude Era was good.
No.
There was a lot of bad. A lot of good, but a lot of bad. Another person, I don't know if Mark knows who this is, but people are probably going to kiss on my grave when I say this. But another idea man that I like, but I'm not a major fan of, this is maybe to a lesser extent, but Hideo Kojima in the video game space. He's the guy who made Metal Gear Solid. After leaving Konami, he made Death Stranding. And Death Stranding was kind of similar, where that game was all over the place. Like, even though Metal Gear was a little all over the place, it kind of still had Konami he had to go through to get it done. Without anybody to filter his ideas, Death Stranding was literally just a story that I still don't even fully understand what the hell he was trying to do, because he was fitting in so much craziness that it just ended up being this thing. They didn't really have the vision.
I don't even know what that is, so.
Well, it has Norman Reedus in it. It's a PS game. But either way, it came out to mixed reviews, and it's like, this guy, he's another one. Visionary, always has an awesome idea. He's always ahead of the curve on everybody with technology and things, ideas, and pushing genres forward. But you also can have too many ideas. And I think that's potentially the danger of James Gunn being the Kevin Feige of DC. But I also hope that maybe he can control himself because he knows that. I guess only time will tell.
Yeah.
You have anything else to say about it, Mark?
No, I don't. That's a good point, though. I don't know who he has that can tell him, like, oh, I want to do this and this and this not Spider-Man, with Batman. It's like, okay, but we're going this direction. Those two things don't fit.
he has Peter Safran as his co-CEO, so he's not fully in control, but I think he's going to be the one with most of the ideas, because he is an idea man. Now, he's not writing and directing all of the films and series, but it's going to be his cohesive vision, and I'm just curious to see if he can keep that cohesive.
Yeah.
And not let it get all over the place. Now, let's start, though, by getting into the DC reboot. We're going to go over every single one of the films and series coming to Max that James Gunn announced they're happening in Chapter 1, Gods and Monsters. And this kind of goes into what I was saying, but also what Mark was saying about him taking F-level characters and potentially being able to make them A-list characters. We're starting out with Creature Commandos. Now, Creature Commandos is going to be an animated Max series. It's going to be 7 episodes. It's supposed to be coming out this December, so it's going to be the very first series of this new DCU reboot. It follows the events from Peacemaker Season 1, and it's supposed to feature Amanda Waller as the new leader, because the Creature Commandos was actually created in 1980, and they were just a team of monsters like Frankenstein, Dracula, werewolf. They were all these universal monster characters that the government created through Project M to fight Nazis in World War II. This is an out there idea, but this is also right down James Gunn's alley.
Gives the opportunity to not make it modern, but make it fit the direction they want to go.
Exactly. And last time, I think they've kind of been throughout comic books here and there. They had a 2000s miniseries along with a New 52 reboot. But I kind of just want to defer to Mark on this one. They plan on this to be a hard R and a filthy tone. And it's supposed to kind of be in the spirit of A-Team. And he was inspired by some 1960s war films. Bride of Frankenstein is also supposed to be the lead character of this. How are your feelings and thoughts on this first one?
I don't know. I feel like it's an odd place to start because they're not really the superheroes you know.
Not at all.
No.
It's the Suicide Squad, but with Universal Monsters.
With Universal Monsters, yeah. And is it one of those things where he's going to take from where it started and them fighting Nazis? Because I feel like does that fit the timeline of Peacemaker?
I don't think so, because it does say it follows Peacemaker. I think the little bit of synopsis that they had for this was that at the end of the Suicide Squad basically take off on Waller. So this is supposed to be her new Black Ops team. And instead of it being criminals, it's going to be
monsters.
Experimented on monsters.
Yeah, so obviously they're not going to be fighting Nazis. So I don't know. It's one of those things like, what can you have them fight? And then also, what can you do to make it tie into Superman and Batman being the focal points of DC?
It's an interesting concept. It's definitely outside the box.
Which fits for him.
It does fit for him. And something I think we have to remember is this is the same guy that got a talking raccoon and a talking tree that only says one word over as big as like Iron Man and Spider-Man.
Yeah.
So if anybody knows how to make these random, strange, just out of the box characters work, it is James Gunn. This is more my issue, though. I don't think Mark shares this issue. Or this is just an issue that I have. Is I can find humor in it if it's written well, but I really despise like raunchy and dirty for the sake of dirty humor. That's just my opinion. Like that's why I've always been more of a Simpsons guy than a Family Guy person.
I'll see like people that predict the future.
Partially, yeah, but I just like, I don't know. I don't find just the, like I said, dirty for the sake of being dirty humor funny. That's just my opinion.
I agree.
I know there's a whole audience for that.
Yeah, there's a whole audience that will sit there and watch a show over and over, like Rick and Morty.
Oh, yeah.
Rick and Morty is dirty.
The thing is, though, Rick and Morty is more like The Simpsons because the humor is written a little more intelligently. You just have to kind of find it.
Yes, but there are cases in it where it's dirty just for the sake of being dirty.
Yeah,
but it has to be done right. Like, it has to have its time and place.
It does. It needs a time and place. And like I said, I just hate dirty for the sake of dirty. I also just hate dark for the sake of dark. I hate when things are dark, but there's no real reason or point to why they are other than just to be dark. That's just the kind of writing that I personally don't like. So I do wonder if this Creature Commando series will be for me. I might not end up liking it, but I know there's an audience for it. So I think it's a good idea.
I think it might follow along the same lines as the Harley Quinn cartoon.
Maybe. Where it's definitely and the Harley Quinn cartoon is funny.
Yes, but it's not super dirty just for the sake of being dirty. No. But it is definitely more of an adult cartoon.
Definitely. If that's the case, I would like it.
Yeah, if it's in that way. Also, I'd like to point out Weasel will be back.
Weasel will be back, and he's going to be played by James Gunn's brother.
Yeah, which I think
he was in the movie, too.
Yeah, I think that's all going to be CGI, so like obviously you won't be able to tell, but...
So, like, from what I see, the main characters of the series is supposed to be Amanda Waller, still being played by Viola Davis, which I love. Because Viola Davis has absolutely nailed that part. We're going to have Frank Grillo return as Rick Flag Sr. We're going to have David Harbour be Eric Frankenstein. Indira Varma, I hope I'm pronouncing some of these names right. I don't know some of these actors. As Bride of Frankenstein, who's supposed to be the main character. There's a couple other characters, like Mark said, Weasel. One that caught my eye, though, is Anya Shalatra. I think her name is. She's Yennefer in the Witcher series. She's going to be playing Cersei. So that's a perfect character for her.
Yeah.
He already plays a witch. So, I don't know. I have mixed feelings on Creature Commando. I can't really say I can't say I'm like, yes, I can't wait for this. I am only looking forward to it because it's the first.
Well, that and it's such a far out there part of DC.
Right.
Like, it could be very interesting to see how it's done.
And it might be similar to Suicide Squad. Or not Suicide Squad, Guardians of the Galaxy in some.
Yeah. Well, there's a bunch of ragtag motherfuckers that make it work.
But I've seen that with the Suicide Squad, and I didn't like it. So, and he did that film. So, did you watch that one, the Suicide Squad? The one he did?
Yeah.
Yeah. How did you feel about that movie?
I mean, I looked at it for what it was. Like, I knew it wasn't really going to add anything to what was going on in their universe. But I thought it was, like, a fun movie. But it really didn't add any, like, major elements to DC.
Just was a little too stupid for me.
Yeah.
But, like I said, that's just
me. It's a very stupid concept, too.
It is. It is. There's certain things I liked about it. I don't know. We'll see. But Creature Commandos is one I'm a little skeptical of. But I think it's a good idea just for the sake of doing it. And it's kind of like what Mark and I talked about. Like, at least let him experiment. Why not? What's the harm? If it doesn't do good, well, then we move on from it.
Yeah, like you've established those characters. They may not be fan favorites, but like now you have them, and they fit the narrative you're going in, so you can use them.
Exactly. Let's move into the first film that we're going to get, 2025. I think almost exactly a year from today. It's going to come out. You know, we'll be doing a podcast on it when that does come out. So I'm going to have to force Mark to go see a Superman film.
That's going to be tough.
But Superman 2025, originally titled Superman Legacy, but they changed that for some reason. It's supposed to come out July 11, 2025, so not exactly a year from today, but a year and a couple days. Film takes inspiration from the comic All-Star Superman by Grant Morrison, which is a pretty famous comic book. It's supposed to focus on a young Superman entering a world full of heroes. I like this, personally, because I'm tired of the origin stories. We know their origin stories. Everybody knows Superman's origin story. Everybody knows Batman's origin story. Like, we know this. You don't need to tell us. Let's just get the character in the world already and tell a story. You feel the same way?
Yeah, I agree. Like, with characters we don't know, like, yeah, have the origin story. But with characters that we know, like, just throw them out there.
Have Creature Commandos.
We don't really know.
Maybe they'll do an origin story where they start out in World War II and then the government locked them away and she comes to take them back to the modern day. You know?
Yeah.
Maybe that's what they'll do, but that's fine.
That could work.
We don't know.
Because we don't know them. Yeah.
Yeah. But for something like Superman, like, how many times do we have to see Krypton destroyed? And, you know, if it adds substance to the story, okay, but we don't need to start the movie with him as a child and discovering his power. Like, we don't need to see that.
We know all that.
Let's just get right into it. So, this movie is supposed to be Clark going on a journey to reconcile his Krypton heritage with his human family. And it was described by Peter Safran as he's the embodiment of truth, justice in the American way. He's kindness in a world that thinks of kindness as old-fashioned. I like that idea a lot. And just hearing that quote, I'm going to share it with all of you soon. But I decided to get a little more creative for this podcast since we're not going to have many opportunities to do that, I don't think. And, you know, I want to back up my constructive criticism. I don't just want to be some asshole just complaining about things online and not offering anything and bringing anything constructive or creative to the table.
Like 90% of them?
Yeah, exactly. I actually went ahead and wrote a movie synopsis for what... Basically, like, if James Gunn sat me down at a table, gave me a pen, and said, okay, we need a Superman film. What should happen? How should it be?
He dies.
And reading that quote inspired me to write an entire movie in, like, an hour. I'm going to share that in a second. But before we do, I just kind of wanted to talk about how I like the idea of Superman being in a society that's basically full of hate. I think that's an interesting concept, and it's basically what I took as the concept and ran with. So in a way, I hope that the movie is similar to the one that I made in some sense, because I love the idea of you take Superman, who's this 1900s American icon, you know, someone that people loved and looked up to when they had pride in their country, and taking him into 2024 where a lot of people don't have pride in their country anymore. That was the idea I ran with, and it seems to be the idea they're going with. So,
which is kind of like taking a page out of X-Men 97's book, where
yeah, in some ways
it's not based in today's time, but like they're dealing with issues of today's time.
And I really hope that this movie does what the Snyderverse failed to do, and that was make Superman a hopeful character. That's something that I really want to see. And have you seen My Adventures with Superman?
No.
And so I think it came out last year or 2 years ago. DC was experimenting, and they made an anime version of Superman. And at first you think anime Superman, that sounds kind of weird. But I watched it when it debuted on Toonami. I've only seen the first 2 episodes. I haven't watched the rest of it, even though I want to, and maybe we will for this podcast at some point, because there's 2 seasons already. But just the 2 episodes I watched, it's my favorite characterization of Superman, because he's dorky, he's funny. Like, it's similar. It's like an anime, you know, where the main character is a little absurd in a way. Yeah. He's not your typical, you know, I'm an American hero, an icon, and, you know, eat your vitamins and say your prayers like Hulk Hogan. He's funny. Like he's a dork, and I like that they leaned into the dorky aspect of Superman.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny. It's funny to see a lighthearted take. And I love My Adventures of Superman for that, and it's why I really do want to just sit down and watch the rest of it. But unfortunately, as all of you will find out, I live under a rock, and video games have ruined my attention span, where if I'm not physically doing it, it's so hard for me to sit down and watch something by myself. I have to have a purpose. So this podcast is one reason why I started, because now I have a purpose to sit and watch.
To watch things.
So it's going to help me watch a lot of things. The more you guys find out about me, the more you're going to hate my guts, because there's so many shows I haven't seen. But hey, we can share them together and share the experience. So that'll be kind of fun. Anyways, Henry Cavill was replaced in this film by David Cornsweet. I don't know how to say his last name. Obviously, after the Black Adam drama, which I talked about, where Black Adam flopped, and The Rock tried to pull a power play on DC, and they didn't like that, so they kicked him out. That's why he's back in WWE.
Pretty much.
But there was just a lot of drama with The Rock and DC. Black Adam flopped, and when Gunn decided he was going to reboot DC, he wanted a younger Superman. And honestly, as much as it pains me to not see Henry as Superman again, I think it was the right call and the right idea to get a new actor and establish this is going to be a new universe. You don't want any association with the Snyderverse. The only time that you can bring the Snyderverse back is if you do a Crisis on Infinite Earths adaptation at some point. Like where you bring in all the heroes.
You do it right, and that's 6 years, 10 years from now.
Yeah, like 12 years from now. Like, I want Henry Cavill to be an old-ass man by the time he comes out, so he can be like gray-haired Superman.
Yeah.
But let's not do that anytime soon, because Marvel's already struggling to do multiverse, and if Marvel can't do it, y'all asses can't do it. So. Another thing I wanted to talk about, this last thing, I don't know if you saw anything about it, but the costume design is very controversial so far, from the leaked set images.
I've seen the leaks. Why is it controversial, though?
People aren't liking the design of Hawkgirl and Nathan Fillion's Guy Gardner Green Lantern. They think their costumes look kind of shitty. The only thing I really have to say to that is you're seeing the costumes without the CGI.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Like, I looked at them and I thought they looked fine. Like, they're costumes.
They're just props. Like, wait. I will judge the costumes when I see the movie.
Yeah.
I'm not going to judge the costume on leaks.
Yeah, if they look like they did in the leaks, then okay. We're already off to a bad start.
Because, like, Hawkgirl could look way cooler, but this is also the Hawkgirl costume without the added CGI and effects.
Right.
Hopefully they get the CGI and effects right this time around. Which I think that's something James Gunn will be able to do.
Yes. Then hopefully they've revamped their budget to actually have money for CGI. Because I don't need this 2012 librarian making a movie in her office CGI.
Yeah. No. What were you going to say?
Before you go into your synopsis, Nathan Fillion's character, Guy Gardner, who's Green Lantern, do you know anything about that version of Green Lantern?
Yeah. I don't know a lot, but I've seen him in animated adaptations. He's kind of like the smarmy Green Lantern. Like, he's not an asshole, but he kind of comes off like one. He's not as nice as Hal Jordan or Jon Stewart. Like, he's kind of like, a dick in a way.
Okay, because I'm going to bring that up later on, because I have a question about how that fits. Do you know the other film Nathan Fillion was in called Firefly?
Was that a film or a TV?
Well, it was a TV show, and then it was a TV show, and then they had a movie.
I've never seen it. I've heard of it. I've never seen it.
I think we just got another episode to do something on.
Okay, yeah, I would love to.
Because I
a lot of good things about it.
I didn't know anything about it, and people at my bar got me into watching it, and I binged it in a day.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is that good?
Yeah,
What's it on?
I didn't sleep. I think it was on Netflix when I watched it. I'm not sure what it's on now.
Okay. Yeah, that would be perfect to do an episode on. I know Nathan Fillion from video games. He does a lot of video game
voice. Yeah.
So I know him as like Buck from Halo, and
he's also in Big Mouth.
He is in Big Mouth, and he also did a really cool fan film adaptation. It's like a short film on YouTube of Uncharted that was way better than the movie. He did. That was awesome. Nathan Fillion is Nathan Drake as far as I'm concerned in live action. But yeah, no, I know him a lot from video games.
Okay.
So I'll get into my synopsis now. But I just want to give a little background for a second. Like, when I came up with it, I was thinking, okay, so let's look at all the Superman films. You have the ones from like the 70s and the 80s, I think, with Christopher Reeves. And you have that weird offshoot one in 2006 that was Superman Returns, I think it was called. That was like a continuation of the Christopher Reeves movies, but like none of the actors were in it for obvious reasons. But then we got Man of Steel. And so Superman really hasn't had a lot of films, surprisingly, for being like the silhouette of a superhero. He really doesn't have a lot of movies. But in his films, we've seen General Zod multiple times. So like, I'm not doing that again. We saw Darkseid, not fight, but it's too early for Darkseid to get involved, as we discussed. And we've seen Doomsday, which was blasphemy. That we even saw Doomsday in the second fucking film in the DCU. Let me do that again. The second fucking film in the DCEU had Superman's strongest villain show up and kill him. That was asinine. And a waste of one of the biggest storylines in all of the DC universe. So I was thinking, okay, we've seen all these characters. Who's left in film that we haven't seen? And this was another thing that inspired me, along with Peter Safran's quote of hope and people being lost with it, is we've never seen Brainiac in a film.
True.
And Brainiac is one of the most powerful and interesting characters. So I decided to use Brainiac as the main antagonist of my Superman film. And I'll get into my synopsis now. So here's a live reading from Nick Fire. Warner Bros., if you want to hire me after this, I'll take the check and I will work my ass off to make the DCU as good as it can possibly be. So let's get started. In an age of hatred and mistrust, Clark Kent is a ray of sunshine in an ever-growing societal darkness. From the consumption of social media leading to extreme bias, trust has all but left the citizens of Metropolis. However, even on the verge of societal collapse, Clark believes in the good of people and that righteousness always triumphs. As a journalist for the Daily Planet, Clark attempts to spread positivity through his work, though his boss would rather put his time into articles of clickbait and misinformation, only aiding to the spread of hatred across the city. Nevertheless, Clark finds hope for his work in the form of Lois Lane, a seasoned journalist who cares about getting to the truth and nothing but. Clark's admiration of Lois, along with his hidden feelings for her, drives his career to optimistically make a difference. But while he isn't combating the negativity of the internet, he is protecting Metropolis as Superman by stopping crime citywide and looking out for the impoverished. In this time of distrust, superheroes, who were once viewed as virtues of Earth, are now ridiculed, with doubt cast upon their judgments. Even Superman, the hope of Metropolis, is considered to be a fading light, with civilians feeling he and others like him don't go far enough. In today's societal standards, the people are leaning more towards the brutal nature of the Authority, which is a group we'll talk about soon, aiding the belief that the only way to get things done is by force. Lex Luthor, the head of the mega corporation LexCorp, and the guiding hand behind the corruption and poverty throughout Metropolis, promotes the disdain for Superman, knowing that only he and Lois Lane have the power to tip the scales on him and his company's power. Any thoughts yet, Mark?
Why are you not a writer?
I'm an aspiring writer, but, it's hard out here.
I like how you tied him writing articles and made it modern with, like, people using clickbait just to be like, oh, this is the story, but in reality, like, that's not really what happened. I think that's a very interesting take on his writing rather than it being a newspaper.
Yeah, newspaper is so, like, 1980s-ish, I need, if I'm going to tell a Superman story, it needs to be, a commentary on today.
Yeah.
And that's why I wanted to talk about the hate, because social media has caused a lot of the hate in our country today.
Yes.
So let's continue. During a confrontation with Metallo, a radicalistic cyborg, Superman is confronted with the truth he'd been ignoring for years. He is not of this world. Through Metallo's power source, kryptonite, Superman harshly learns that this glowing chunk of rock can make him powerless, intriguing Luthor, who discovers this great power and its benefit. Clark confronts his parents about his birth, always knowing deep down he was different, and learns that he arrived in a spaceship that landed on their farm when he was a baby. From learning the truth of his identity and interacting with the ship he once arrived in, Beacon is set off in the Arctic, which he follows, to find a long-forgotten Kryptonian shelter on Earth, the Fortress of Solitude. After investigating the fortress, Clark learns of his true name, Kal-El, and that his parents sent him off-world to Earth when calamity was brought to theirs. As a terrifying reminder of Earth today, Krypton was faced with overwhelming negativity and distrust amongst its people, eventually leading to a world war that destroyed their planet and attracted the attention of spacefaring AI, Brainiac, who consumes worlds on the brink of destruction and stores their data after destroying their civilization to remain the supreme intelligence of the universe and to make it a better place. Unknowingly, activating the Kryptonian beacon didn't only attract Clark, but attracted the attention of Brainiac, who had already been eyeing Earth's downfall for some time. Now knowing he isn't the only intelligence left in the universe with Kryptonian knowledge, Brainiac expedites his plans for Earth's destruction and starts with the city of Metropolis to lure out the last son of Krypton. Any other thoughts you have yet, Mark?
So you're trying to say, like, not have the origin story, and you're not, but you have that small little glimpse of it that they just kind of sent him away to save him.
Yeah.
And that's all you need.
Exactly. And I tried tying in the fact that, like, Krypton was destroyed because of the negativity of its people.
Right.
And sending them into a world war, which be reality.
Yeah.
But,
but now he's
I did the origin story without it being the start
essentially
of
the same things happening.
Yeah. So, and it's a story we haven't seen in film where Brainiac is the one who destroyed Krypton for good.
Yeah.
Which it's not something I came up with. That's something that's been in other comics before. It's
right, we just haven't
I've
seen
incorporated. So, Brainiac comes and he destroys civilizations that are already on the brink of destroying themselves. He just wants their knowledge before they take themselves out.
Yeah.
So, Superman faces Brainiac, but is defeated and detained as a trophy to be a slave in Brainiac's cultural collection. There, he meets another enslaved Kryptonian, Kara Zor-El, who just happens to be his cousin, and discovers she too was sent off-world in Krypton's destruction and lost her home to Brainiac the same way, like how Superman will lose Earth. Clark refuses to allow Brainiac to destroy his world or any other civilization again. Even in darkness, Clark always believes good will prevail, and his devotion to justice inspires Kara to fight again, as they both look to be freed from their containment. Back on Earth, humanity is in disarray. In the face of Superman's sudden defeat, and seemingly his death, the citizens of Metropolis are forced to unite in this alien invasion with their neighbors, looking past their colors, creeds, and extremes in the faces of fear. Their survival now falls on them. While the citizens of Metropolis fight, Clark and Kara find the power to break free of their confinement and aid humanity, along with a team of united heroes, as Superman leads them to the defeat of Brainiac. In the aftermath of the invasion, the people of Metropolis learned a valuable lesson. Everyone bleeds the same red. Regardless of their personal beliefs, the citizens should strive to love thy neighbor and put an end to the tribalistic idealisms that divide their great city. Clark Kent takes solace in this newfound positivity, and for once, his articles of optimism are met with the most clicks. Even though it took the city's destruction and an alien invasion to bring the people together, at least they can rebuild with a feeling of comfort and hope. Superman knows he still has a long way to go to make people see the good in the world. But what happened when Metropolis was faced with danger only reinforces his belief. Righteousness always triumphs. End scene.
I'll go see that Superman movie.
James Gunn, if you need some help, I'm here.
What are you gonna do if that is the story they go with?
I mean, I would be happy. I think it's gonna be similar.
Something along those lines to incorporate it to modern.
Like,
that's the route they want to go.
Just based off that quote, I know they're gonna do something similar where Superman is a ray of sunshine in darkness, in times of darkness. And I think they might use Brainiac. So what I came up with probably isn't too far from what James Gunn is really going to do. But, I mean, I came up with this in like an hour and a half. So I hope that someone getting paid big money with a board of like directors and writers to help him can come up with something better than this.
Yeah, but that's... I think
but hey, I'm going to save this one, though, in my computer in case, anybody wants to hit me up or make an animated film someday.
Yeah. No, that would make... It wouldn't... I'm not going to say it would make me a Superman fan, but it would make me be like, okay, I'll go see that movie.
It's because it makes... I think it makes Superman interesting without having to make him interesting.
Yeah.
What makes him interesting is the fact that he wants to be a good person in a time where being a good person isn't really the thing to do.
No, it's frowned upon to be a good person.
And I kind of figured, I left room, because if you kind of notice, I didn't really do a lot with Lois Lane and Lex Luthor. I kind of just set them up as characters.
Yeah, you left them as they're in the story, but they're not the main story.
And Luthor kind of learns about kryptonite in this film. So my idea would be if you do a sequel, it would probably center where this one centered around more of society. I think the second movie I would actually focus more around the greed of corporations and how LexCorp is kind of destroying Metropolis. So Luthor would be the main villain of the next film. But at the same time, it would also be more of a focus on the love story of Lois Lane and Clark Kent.
Yeah.
And then, maybe Metallo comes back too, because he's a cool villain. He's powered by kryptonite, and he's kind of like a cyborg thing. So maybe Lex Luthor would rebuild him, and they would have another big confrontation in the second film. I would definitely leave a piece of Brainiac surviving in the after credits of the first film.
Yeah, you
come back for Justice League. And that's another reason why in my film I had Superman lead the team of heroes like Hawkgirl and stuff that would be in this movie, because they would kind of take him as the leader of the Justice League because he led them against.
He led them to a victory, so they already have that trust in him as a leader.
And then, like, I probably wouldn't do a third film for a long time. I'd probably have Superman's story kind of play out more in a Justice League film.
Yeah,
but
you don't
eventually
need a superhero man movie to have Superman.
Yeah, but eventually I would want to do, like, if I was to do a Superman 3 of this franchise, that's when I would pull the trigger on the Doomsday story.
Yeah, right.
And I would pull the trigger on Superman dying and staying dead, because it would be like his death is what unites humanity. So that's just my idea. Mark said he'd go see it, so
I would go see that. I'm not going to say I'd pre-order tickets, but I'd go see it.
I'll still take it as a compliment that I got MarcTheTruth to go see a Superman.
Let's just hope he can do the same.
Let's hope. James, if you need help, man, hit us up at FireTruthCast@gmail.com. So, moving on, the next movie that's supposed to come out, as far as we know, is Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow. It's supposed to come out June 26, 2026. Film will be based on Tom King's comic series that ran from 2021-2022. So this is going to be based on a pretty recent comic. And it's being described by Gunn as a big science fiction epic. What are your thoughts on this one?
Well, I think with him trying to make it all of this kind of tie into being more modern, a lot of the other things he's taking inspiration from are not modernized at all. So this is something that's already in a modern situation. So I think it'll be a lot easier for him to adapt. As far as it being a sci-fi, what did you say? Sci-fi what?
Science fiction epic. And from what I researched about the comic, it's supposed to be about a space adventure of Supergirl.
I don't know how I feel about that. Like, I don't know what you can do to make it
now
be all space-oriented.
I've heard rumors, because obviously I think Jason Momoa is out as Aquaman. I've heard rumors they want to bring him back as Lobo in this film.
Yes. I'd be okay with that. I think he
Lobo
mentioned
hunting her.
Yeah, I think he mentioned doing Lobo before he got Aquaman.
Yeah. So I think this film might be about Lobo hunting down Supergirl across the galaxy.
I'd be okay with that. Lobo is one of those characters, like, I like him simply because of his look. Like, I know nothing about him.
Right. He is a cool character. He's just like a bounty hunter, I think.
Yeah. Just a superhero bounty hunter.
Yeah. He's not necessarily bad either.
No. He's one of those
it wouldn't surprise me.
Characters.
Yeah. It wouldn't surprise me if he's not the main villain of the movie. If you're going to do a main villain of the movie, now, I didn't write one for this one, guys. So, but my idea was maybe you could use Mongol as the main villain. Do you know who Mongol is?
I think I know what he looks like, but
he's basically based off Genghis Khan. He's like Genghis Khan of space, and he's a conqueror and a slaver, and he rules this place called Warworld, which is kind of similar to like Thor Ragnarok. It's like a stadium where you kidnap powerful people and have them fight. But so you maybe could do that, where her and Lobo get kidnapped into Mongol Warworld. Yeah, I know I just said you shouldn't do what Marvel's already done, but it's kind of a concept you could take further, because Thor Ragnarok wasn't really about the stadium and being enslaved. It was kind of just the very beginning of the film.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. That's just an idea. Maybe they'll do it, maybe they won't. I'm not saying
I think it'd be a good idea. I think it'd be a good idea to get Lobo involved somewhere along the line in these, because it's one of those characters that he could take as a D-list superhero or anti-villain and make them an A-list name.
I mean, Momoa looks just like Lobo. So.
Yeah.
They have their Supergirl, too. Her name's Millie Alcock. I don't really know much about her, but at least they have someone.
You know more about actors and actresses than I do, so.
Yeah, I don't really know. If anybody does know, hit us up on X at FireTruth Nerdcast and drop some Fire Truth on us. After that, we're going to Peacemaker Season 2. Now, we both haven't really seen Peacemaker, but the weird part about this, too, is it's going to be Season 2, but it's supposed to be a soft reboot again, because they're resetting everything, so it's kind of like already confusing. John Cena is going to return.
I was going to say, he's one of the only people they're having return, and I think that goes to, like, I don't know if you've seen John Cena films, but
they're terrible.
They're terrible, but the role he plays fits in those movies, and I think the role he has as Peacemaker fits for his character.
I think he's been better at, like, the comedy movies than the action movies.
Peacemaker is basically just a comedy.
Right. Like Peacemaker in the Peacemaker series and Suicide Squad, Peacemaker wasn't really my problem. So
no,
I like it. I think it's cool. And it's supposed to continue from where the Suicide Squad left off, where Frank Grillo's Rick Flag Sr. fought Peacemaker at the end of the film. Mm-hmm. And I guess it's supposed to be he comes back with unfinished business to go after Peacemaker. So this is like a reboot, but also a sequel. Curious to see how they continue that, but I really don't have a lot of thoughts to say on that.
No, it's one of those things I have to go watch the first season in order to kind of have an opinion on it. Because I only really know, like, little snippets I've seen, which is mostly just jokes that he has said as his character.
Yeah. Another one I don't really have an opinion on is Waller TV series. I don't get the point of this one. Like, Viola Davis is already returning as Amanda Waller in Creature Commandos and probably in Peacemaker Season 2. I don't know why she really needs an entire show on her. I don't really know what she's going to do.
It might be maybe the first initial show, we won't really get much backstory on her, and maybe this will give us backstory on her.
It could. I mean, Amanda Waller, if anybody doesn't know, she is a very strong character in DC. She's like the only human that every character and like hero is basically afraid of. Even Batman is afraid of her. That should tell you a lot. He doesn't like to fuck with Amanda Waller.
No.
So that tells you everything you need to know. I'm interested in seeing what it is, but I don't know if I'm really going to care about it.
No, I'd probably watch it just so I can, if it has important key points as things go on, so I know at least. But
another weird thing was this was supposed to originally release this year, and it was supposed to be before Superman, but because of the actor strike and everything, it got delayed.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
So now it's being taking place after Superman at some point. They don't have a release date anymore. Next series we have is Lanterns. This one I'm very excited for. What about you? How do you feel about the Green Lantern show?
I'm excited for it because it's going to have basically the two well-known versions of Green Lantern that everybody knows in one story, which is why I'd asked before with the Superman one, is he going to tie in? Does he know who they are?
I'm a pretty big Green Lantern fan. I always thought Green Lantern was cool, and I don't know if you ever saw this, but I used to watch Cartoon Network had this block in like 2010, 11-ish that was just DC Hour, and it was where they showed Young Justice and the Green Lantern, the animated series. And Green Lantern, the animated series, was similar to like the Star Wars Clone Wars, where it was CGI animation.
Yeah. I remember. I don't remember much of it, but I remember I watched it.
It definitely doesn't look as good as like Star Wars did, but I like that show a lot. The storylines of that show were really good, and it's what took me from kind of being like a Green Lantern, whatever, to like, wow, I love
Green Lanterns. Yeah, and it sucks that the only real movie that we've gotten was the Ryan Reynolds version, which was awful.
That's why I'm excited for this Lanterns TV series, because Green Lantern's one of the characters that hasn't gotten any justice in any of the films or any
and the only good thing that really came out of that movie was the different versions of Green Lanterns.
Yeah.
throughout the whole galaxy or whatever. Like, just seeing all the different versions of alien species that are lanterns was really the only cool thing that came out of it.
Yeah, and I mean, there's all this lore with the lanterns, like the red lanterns, the blue lanterns, the yellow lanterns, like Sinestro, we haven't seen really. And I mean, I think he was in the Ryan Reynolds film, but I don't know how much of a part he played in it. I don't remember. But there's a lot of great lore. They have like their home base. I forgot what it's called, where all the Green Lanterns live, and it's cool. I like it. I think it has a lot of potential. It's being described as an enormous TV event, so it sounds like it's going to be a show they put a lot of money into. Mm-hmm. Like you said, it's going to be about Hal Jordan and Jon Stewart. And it's supposed to be a mystery, though. They're comparing it to True Detective, and it's basically supposed to be like the Green Lanterns are investigating a mystery on Earth that is supposed to play a big role in the overall arc of Chapter 1.
Okay.
So whatever they discover is, I guess, going to be the start of what leads up to their big Justice League, Avengers-style film.
For the first wave.
Yeah. I'm excited for it. I like the idea it's a crime show.
Yeah,
it's going to be like different. A buddy cop thing, but space cops.
Right. With rings that can basically do whatever you want.
Yeah. I'm excited for it. Moving on, the next series we're going to talk about is a film. This is a brand new one, The Authority. Now, Mark, do you know anything about The Authority?
I don't know shit, but reading on it, I think it's fucking awesome.
Yeah. I didn't know shit either. I was like, I've never even heard of this. So I did some research, and after researching it, I discovered this for anybody that doesn't know. There was a series created and published in 1999 by independent comics Wildstorm, and is about a team of heroes that do whatever it takes to get the job done. Wildstorm was then bought by DC around 2010, 2011, and the characters were introduced into the main DC universe throughout various comics over the years. They are more recently returned in the 2021 comic series Superman and the Authority. Now, Gunn described the Authority as a team that thinks, quote, "The world is completely broken, and the only way to fix it is to take things into their own hands. Whether that means killing people, destroying heads of state, changing governments, whatever they want to do to make the world better," end quote. And we know that from other interviews that the Engineer, who's one of the characters in The Authority, will appear in Superman 2025. That's why in my synopsis I wrote The Authority, people kind of wanting to be more on the Authority side than like the heroes like Superman, who they kind of looked as old school and not willing to like take out governments and stuff.
Yeah, they're willing to do anything.
So... What were you going to say?
I was going to say, with it being something that wasn't originally a DC comic, and they bought the rights to it, like that gives you the opportunity to kind of do whatever you want with it. Because it's not really characters that people that follow DC, they don't know. So it gives you the opportunity to kind of twist and turn it however you want.
It's kind of, I think, similar to Creature Commandos, where it's one of those things that nobody knows about, but the characters are so odd and interesting. James Gunn could definitely do something unique and out of the box with this one, which is what he's best at.
Yeah, those two are definitely going to be his, like, project childs.
Definitely. I think I remember reading something about how he's been trying to make this film for a long time. And this is his time to finally capitalize on it. I want to read just little, biographies for the characters, because they just sound interesting. So, main character is Jenny Sparks. She's the leader of the team, a British woman who can manipulate electricity. She was born in the 1900s. She stopped aging when she turned 19, and she's secretly been influencing most of the century's turning points, which is why she's considered the spirit of the 21st century. You have Apollo, one of the first openly gay superheroes who's married to Midnighter, another member of the team. He's described as a solar battery with super strength, flight, and vulnerability. He's basically considered to be a bioengineered Superman. So it'll be interesting to see Apollo and Superman interact at some point in the DCU. There's Midnighter, former soldier with enhanced abilities that can see a battle play out before it even begins. He's supposed to be a bioengineered Batman, and apparently he's appeared in some Nightwing comics. Then we have the Engineer, who's supposed to appear in the 2025 Superman film. A woman who infused herself with nanotechnology, turning her body into liquid metal. She can interface with any machine and shapeshift into any object she imagines. There's the Doctor, a Dutch recovering drug addict sorcerer. You already have me sold on that beginning part. And he's also one of the greatest magic users on the planet. So basically just think of him as a drug addict Doctor Strange.
Yeah.
There's Swift, a woman with the ability to manifest wings and claws, one of the fastest characters in the world. That one doesn't sound so cool to me.
No.
But, you know. Then there's Jack Hawksmoor, a man who was given strange abilities after an alien abduction. He has super strength and psychic powers that allow him a symbiotic relationship with cities. That is a strange-ass character.
They're all kind of fairly strange.
They are, but with how strange they are, I'm definitely willing to see what Gunn does with them.
Oh yeah, because they all have very interesting abilities.
Yeah. And I like the fact that they don't, you know, basically they're against the government and they're against just authorities in general, which is why they're called the Authority. They're their own authority.
Yeah, which for me and you the same, I think, like, we don't really know who they are. So it'll be interesting to see how they all get introduced to each other and, like, how that plays out.
And it's going to be interesting to see how they conflict with Superman and how they conflict with the Justice League. We might even see them fight each other at some point down the line in a future chapter.
Yeah, there might be some big conflict that they both have. And the Justice League's like, oh, well, the government's the issue. Like, they're the ones that don't want to do it, and we can't do anything. And they're like, all right, hold my beer. We'll go take care of them.
And then Superman's going to be like, wait, I didn't mean that.
I didn't mean to do that.
Yeah, I'm curious. I'm curious to see what's going to happen with them. The next thing we have is Paradise Lost, a TV series. The series is set in the Amazon island of Themyscira. It's described as a political drama for the birth of Wonder Woman. They're comparing it to Game of Thrones, so basically think Game of Thrones, medieval style, like wars and political drama with Amazons. What do you think about this one?
I think it'll be interesting because it's before Wonder Woman. So we'll get to see, like, I'm sure in the comics they've talked about where she's from and, like, what went on there. But we'll get to see that adapted to TV and how that plays out. And, you know, if it'll be one of those things where, like, her planet knows of Krypton and Earth and all of that. And they're kind of superior beings to them. I mean,
that's how they think they live on their island, and they think that they're better than everyone else.
Yeah.
They're better than man, so they don't want any association with man.
No.
Apparently, it's inspired by a comic called Paradise Island Lost, and that tells the story of an Amazon civil war. I'm guessing that's what this is going to be, and maybe it will. Maybe whatever the ending of this show is will lead to the birth of Wonder Woman.
Yeah, but also, like, what would they have a civil war against?
That's what I'm curious about, because what I was reading in the comic was Wonder Woman was part of the Civil War.
Mm-hmm.
She's not in this series, so
maybe there was two.
Maybe there'll be some Amazons that want to interact with the humans.
Oh, yeah, it could be something like that. Like, they want,
and then other ones don't.
Yeah. Yeah, they have the conflict of, you know, we could use them, they can use our help, we could use their help, and then you have the other Amazons, they're like, no, they're inferior, we don't want that. And maybe the birth of Wonder Woman will end up being what ends the Civil War?
Yeah, it could be.
Maybe they'll go that route.
It could. It's just another out-of-the-box idea.
Yeah.
Which I like. I mean, basically, it seems like Gunn's throwing a lot of stuff at the wall and seeing if any of it's going to stick.
Yeah.
But at least they're interesting concepts.
Yeah, but it all sounds as if, like, we're not getting that backstory of characters, but we're getting that starting point of introducing those characters to then create the long-term story like we got with Marvel for DC.
Definitely.
With characters thrown in that we know nothing about, that are just completely off the wall.
It's gonna be really cool to see. Now, speaking of characters, though, this isn't one that we've haven't seen a lot. This is one we've seen too much. We're gonna get another Batman.
Yeah,
Batman, the Brave and the Bold. It's gonna be a film. I'm a little concerned about it because not only is it another Batman, but it's gonna be directed by the same guy who made The Flash. So
that part I don't like, but I like the part of him being the guy from the It films.
Right. And I was going to say that.
Because with them going in a darker path, maybe we're going to get a Batman horror type film, which, if they
You're
go
on the
that
same
route,
track of mine that I am.
Exactly. And if you look at Batman's villains, that could work perfectly. Scarecrow would be perfect for a horror film. And then, when I think of Joker in a horror aspect, it makes me think of the Arkham games.
Arkham Asylum, yeah.
Like, yeah, he's colorful, he's funny, but, like, he's kind of fucking creepy because, like, everything around him is dark. It's like, I don't know if we're going to see Joker in this film for a whole lot of time, or if we see him at all, but if you continue with this version of Batman, if it's darker, if they go that route with it being the director of It, that's the version of the Joker I would want to see.
Right.
Like,
that's exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah, just like a dirty fucking clown.
I like the fact that he made the It films, and Batman, Batman as a series is a lot darker than The Flash. So maybe he's just not good at making those hopeful, colorful films. Maybe he's just better at the dark horror-esque things. That's perfect for Batman and the aesthetic of Gotham City. Now, another thing that I do like about this film, though, is that it's going to be based on Grant Morrison's Batman and Son comics. And I've been begging for years for them to make a Batman film about Robin. Mm-hmm. We need Robin in these films, and they're going to grab the most interesting Robin of them all, Damian Wayne, who is Batman's bastard child. And it's also supposed to feature other members of the Bat family, so I'm expecting to see Nightwing, Batgirl. It's going to be cool to see the whole Bat family in one film, and it'll make it stand out from all the others.
Right, because we'll get, some of these characters, like, we've seen them in shows, but, like, for Red Hood, we've only seen, obviously there's the comics and he's appeared in other things, but, like, there's really only the one movie, the animated movie on him.
He's never been in, like, a film, or I think the only live action he's in is Titans, and that show sucks. So
yeah, and it's one of those things, like, I don't think they're gonna get a whole lot of screen time in the movie, but it's one of those things, like, we might get introduced to them, which then leads to, like, okay, they're all there, so now we can pull at them as time goes on for certain things.
Definitely. I don't know if you're going to agree with me, but I also feel like even though Batman has been portrayed by so many different actors, I really don't think any actor has nailed the presence of Batman.
No. And everyone leans towards Christian Bale, which, don't get me wrong, he was great, but his size wasn't there, and to me, those movies were kind of darker movies.
Yeah, they were more like reality-based Batman.
Yeah.
They weren't like in this film, I want to see Batman, the animated series Batman, in live action.
Yes.
I want to see a veteran, more mature Bruce Wayne Batman who's been through it, who's already fought a lot of these villains.
And he doesn't even have to touch you if he doesn't want to.
Right. Like I want to see a Batman. I want to see a Batman that's already been through it. Not like, the Batman film is already doing a young Bruce Wayne. We've seen young Bruce Wayne over and over again. Give me a Batman that is established and acts mature and is always 10 steps ahead of everybody. That's the kind of Batman I want to see.
Yeah.
The animated series one
Like,
brought to life.
Yeah, like maybe we'll get encounters with him with Robin. He's like, hey, this is what's going on. He's like, okay, and you haven't done this? He's like, no, I didn't think of that. And he's like, oh, well, I've been there, done that, do that.
And if you know anything about the comic book Batman and Son, or if you've seen the Batman and Son animated film, Damian Wayne is like, his idea of justice is killing people because he is the son of Batman and Talia al Ghul, and he was raised by the League of Assassins, and Batman didn't even know he existed. So Damian was trained by assassins for his entire life. So his idea of justice is just killing people and getting it over with.
Yeah. They're done and I'm going to deal with them ever again.
Right. Where we know Batman's sense of justice is, I don't want to take things too far because then that makes me as bad as them. Which I still don't know how much I agree with that thinking, but it's Batman's thinking. He wants to have hope in everybody. Like Superman, just he does it dressed as a bat at night.
Yeah.
And in a more brutal fashion. Do you have any ideas for what this film could be about?
I think with them, I don't know. I think with them mentioning that like it's going to include the Bat family, I think it's going to be, unfortunately, like an introduction to this version of Batman. So I think it's not going to be a full origin story. Like I think there's definitely going to be an overseeing villain throughout it, but I think it's going to be one of those things where we establish that relationship, where this Batman stands when we get to the Justice League, and like what he's about.
Right. That's what I'm hoping. I was going to write a synopsis for this movie too, but I didn't end up having time, and the idea I had for it was good, but still needed to be ironed out. It wasn't like the Superman one where it just came to me naturally. Like I was just like something possessed me and I wrote it. This one
Go ahead.
No, I was just saying this one I would have required more time to think about, and for fan fiction, I just didn't really want to take time into it.
Well, I was going to say, think about it this way: you don't have to convince me to go see a Batman movie. No. You had to convince me to go see a Superman movie, though.
Yeah, right. And I nailed that.
You did.
But I'll just kind of go over what I think maybe could be cool to see, or what I want to see. Like I already said, I want to see a wise veteran Batman that's already faced like the trials and tribulations of Gotham City.
Yeah, where it's a situation where like, you know, Robin will encounter people and he'll be like, okay, I've already been there, done that, like, and basically kind of just put almost like he does in Batman Beyond, where he knows what's going to happen, but he kind of lets him suffer throughout the whole fight.
Right. Like be a mentor, but kind of also be watching to see the mistake.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, obviously, you know, he's been through all these trials and tribulations in this cesspool, but he gets a new, you know, challenge thrown his way, raising a child, which is something Batman is not known to be good for because all of his children end up dead or hating him. So, you know, obviously Talia would come to his doorstep. I personally don't want Damian to be a kid, though. I want to see Damian be about maybe 15 or 16 years old already. What do you think about that?
Well, I agree with that. Like, I don't want him to be a child.
No, like the child thing works in a cartoon, but I don't know how much it would work and be believable in a film.
Well, yeah, and if you go this route where he's a child, you're almost going that path of the Mandalorian, where like he's there, but he can't really do anything to help Batman.
Yeah, I don't want to see that. I just don't want to see a 10-year-old killing adults. That's just strange to me. I'd rather see, like, if he's going to kill somebody, I want it to be believable, where maybe he's 15, 16, he's grown a little bit, and he can handle somebody.
And I think they're going to go the route where, in the scheme of things, like, Robin does end up killing someone he encounters, and Batman sees it, and then kind of has to live with that and still be Batman.
Mm-hmm. And he has to, basically the plot of the film, which is what I was thinking, is it's going to be Batman trying to teach his son his way, to abandon the assassin ways and show him that. I remember there was a quote from the animated film where he said, where like Damian was like, well, why can't I just kill him? It would be easier. And then Batman said something like, doing what's right isn't always easy.
Yeah. And I think it'll be one of those things where it'll be a triumph story at the end.
Yeah.
Where,
oh, yeah.
You know, he might do something that Batman doesn't agree with, but by the end of the film, Robin will be on the same page as Batman. And I think as time goes on and we see them encounter more in like the Justice League and all that, there will be situations where Robin reverts back to the League of Assassins way.
Yeah, and that's why I want him to be a little older, because I think him being like a disgruntled teenager, an angsty, disgruntled teenager would make more sense.
It would
be able to be taken more seriously.
Yeah.
Now, my other idea for it would be that, like, you know, Ra's al Ghul, we've never seen the real Ra's al Ghul on film. We saw Liam Neeson's adaptation, which was great, but the real Ra's al Ghul is very supernatural and mystical, and he uses the Lazarus pits to, you know, be brought back to life constantly. I'd like to see that again, where, like, maybe in this version, Ra's is already dead. You could even maybe tell the story that Batman killed Ra's, and he has experience with killing somebody, and he regrets doing it, which is how you could maybe tie that back with Damian, and him teaching Damian not to kill. But I would like to see maybe where Ra's, his body disappears, because you got to have a reason why Talia is bringing Damian to Bruce. And I would think it would be maybe Ra's body is gone from the tomb. She doesn't know what's going on. Batman's like, well,
it's not safe for him.
Right. We destroyed the Lazarus pits. I don't know what's going on here, but it's safer for Damian to stay with you right now.
Yeah.
And then that would maybe lead to what I want to see, because I don't want the League of Assassins to be the main villain. What I want to see, and this was maybe kind of a little bit what I had difficulty figuring out, but I know it can be done. Do you know what the Court of Owls is?
Kind of.
So for anybody that doesn't know, the Court of Owls is an underground society that is in control of Gotham City, and they've been around controlling it since the 1600s. And there are these wealthy, rich people that wear owl masks, so nobody really knows their faces. I would like to see the Court of Owls in live action, because it's a really interesting idea where Batman, like, it would also help in the fact that Batman thinks he's in control of the city, but he's really not. And maybe the Court of Owls have something to do with Ra's al Ghul disappearing. I was thinking maybe they find a Lazarus pit underneath Gotham City that they didn't know about, and there's a storyline where Ra's tries to be resurrected in Damian's body, and I was thinking that would be cool to to put in the film.
Yeah, that could work as the idea. Like, maybe she knows his plan is like he's got to get out of here, and gives him to Batman.
And maybe Ra's is part of the Court of Owls or has some sort of association to it. There's also another character from the Court of Owls, because there's this character that's a Talon, and he kind of goes around murdering. And I know there's some sort of story, I think in an animated film, where the Talon tries to manipulate Damian into joining the Court of Owls. So you could do something like that, where it's like, we kill, your father doesn't. Like, you could join us and really save Gotham and be in control of Gotham, where your father thinks he is, but he really isn't. For whatever reason, they would want to bring Ra's back to life. I really couldn't figure that part out. But I would like to see the Court of Owls be the main antagonist of this film, with Ra's somehow tying it all together. And you could even do where I read the comic book for the Court of Owls, and at the end of the book, you find out that the Talon is actually, and it's not confirmed, but supposedly it's, the modern Batman stories kind of show the Waynes in a different light and show that there was corruption in their family at some point, or some of them were part of the Court of Owls. And I would like to see that, because Thomas Wayne Jr., a man who could be Batman's brother or believes to be Batman's brother, is the leader, or like the Talon that's going around. So it would kind of make sense for him to manipulate Damian.
Yeah, that'd be interesting, because you have that, like, he could be there, Raish, and no one really knows where he is, but the Court of Owls could be that underlying, like, hey, you like to kill people, here is your outlet. And then it's kind of Batman trying to stop him from doing that, and then Batman realizing he doesn't have... Well, we survived the storm. We foreshadowed it in the beginning of our intro that there might be a possibility of a storm, and it came. We both survived. We ended up it hit us first, so we ended up in our basement and lost power for a few minutes, and then kind of had to just wait it out. And then I had to go check outside and make sure we didn't lose anything. And then I'll turn it over to Nick, because I found out what happened to him this morning.
Surprised I'm still here, to be honest with you. Apparently, the cloud, the funnel cloud or whatever, formed directly over my place. So that was the first time I ever actually really had to take shelter in a tornado in a long time. Of course, obviously, nothing happened, which could be a good or a bad thing, I suppose, because I was looking forward to the views it could possibly get.
That's not a good thing.
But overall, yeah, no, it's good that it didn't hit. There were like 10 tornadoes that came out of this, so it was a pretty serious storm.
Yeah.
But I'm glad that you guys are okay too, because yours went off first, and I'm gonna see if I can keep that in the audio so everybody can hear it. So
hear it go off.
We cut intro in, everybody knows why and where we were when it happened. But I mean, yeah, we survived, so that's good.
Yeah, and I honestly, like, minus the fact there was tornadoes last night, I think the storm on Sunday was worse.
Yeah, that's probably true. It was weird. It was like the calmest tornado I've ever seen. But I guess
that's usually how
it is. Yeah. Maybe that's why that's why it didn't look too bad out there. But really, like, when I was driving to work today, there was tons of trees down and just like dirt all over the place. It was kind of crazy how much damage it caused.
Yeah, we had a power line that went down and landed on a breaker, and then people were posting videos, and it looked like aliens were landing, because it was like blue and red and green lights from the sparks everywhere.
Yeah. Well, we survived. We made it.
Yep.
Another day, another podcast. We get to finish the one we were doing, so that's good. Now, I believe the last thing we were talking about was Batman, Brave and the Bold. I'm pretty sure we finished that up. But I just had one little comment left to say on that. And that's the fact that, where the fuck is the Batman Beyond movie?
Yeah, that's probably coming later. It has to be.
Like, how long is it going to take? We have the technology now to make a really awesome Batman Beyond film. And yet, nobody wants to do it? Does Warner Brothers not want to do it? What's going on? I even heard the fact that the Spider-Verse people presented a Batman Beyond animated film in the same concept. Same style. I've even seen pictures of it, and they denied it. Fuck.
And, I mean, fingers crossed they're saving it for the right time, even though I think the right time is now. But hopefully they're saving it and they have it on the back burner.
Listen, all I have to say, if y'all can't figure out how to do it, I will fucking do it for you.
I will learn animation and I will do it.
I literally have 3 Batman Beyond trilogy films planned out. I will do it for you. Just let me do it. Just get me a director. I'll write the whole thing. I'll executive produce the whole thing. Just please, let's make a DC Elseworlds Batman Beyond story, because you guys are literally sitting on gold that you don't even realize.
Nope.
Like, no one cares about Bruce Wayne anymore, okay? We've seen it a million times. What we haven't seen is Terry McGinnis and Batman in a Neo-Gotham cyberpunk-style future. Let's get it done.
It has to be done at some point. Even if it's not, like, DC. Like, maybe they'll lose the rights to Batman, because, like, all those things are happening with Disney and they're losing rights to things. Then someone else can take it and do it.
I mean, Batman's... I don't know when Batman was first made. I want to say it was in the 1930s. So by sometime in the 2030s, Batman's copyright license is going to be up. So.
Mm-hmm. And I'm sure they'll buy the rights to it back, but...
Well, I don't think they can, because after... I'm not exactly sure, but I think after 100 years, it becomes free use. Like, anybody can make something. Then that's why you see, like, that Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey.
Yeah. Maybe we're going to have to wait. Yeah, we're going to have to wait.
I think Mickey Mouse also just came up, and they're making 4 Mickey Mouse shows and games.
The Mickey Mouse Steamboat version, I guess.
Yeah, right. So when Batman comes up, I will fucking make the Batman Beyond. Okay? So everybody just...
It'll be free game, yeah.
It'll be free game. I'll make it. I will 100% make it if they will not do it. Either way, let's continue with our James Gunn DCU discussion, because the next topic we have to talk about is a TV series, Booster Gold. Now, if none of you know who Booster Gold is, and I'm sure most of you don't, his name is Mike Carter. He's a disgraced 25th century football star who travels from the future and uses advanced technology in the past to pretend he's a superhero. If you guys have seen any of Batman not Batman the animated series, but like the animated universe that takes place in with the Justice League or Justice League Unlimited specifically, Booster Gold is in that, and he's kind of just like a nonsense, funny comedy character, because he's not really a superhero. He's just a guy who has technology that makes him look like a superhero, but he's not, and he kind of sucks, and nobody really wants him around.
No.
There's even a funny scene in the Batman Harley Quinn animated movie that came out a few years ago where, like, Booster Gold calls Batman and is like, I can come help you, and Batman is looking at Nightwing, and Nightwing's like, hell no.
No.
And then they start, like, making static with paper. Like, oh, we're cutting out.
Can't hear you, I lost you.
So that's how much this guy sucks.
But I think in this regard, like, they're going to do it in a way. He's still going to be a comedy character. But I think the concept is kind of cool. Like, he's from the future. He's not really a superhero. He's just trying to get basically in New Age terms, the clout of being a superhero. So it'll be fun to see, like, I don't know how they're going to do it, but like if he came back and was like, oh, I'm going to go help Superman with Brainiac, and like he shows up with this technology and he's like, get the fuck out of here. Go away. I don't want you.
They said it's going to be an outright comedy show.
Yeah.
So be interesting, because we've had comedy in Marvel movies and stuff, but I don't think we've had just a specific comedic like superhero show.
No.
So if they get the right actor and it has good writing, it could actually be something new that maybe even breaks through to the mainstream.
But like I'd like to see it in that regard where, like, each episode he encounters a different superhero, like Batman, like from DC, fighting one of their villains, and like just jumps in to help and kind of gets shoved away and like gone in 30 seconds.
Yeah, I mean, even Deadpool has its like serious moments in a sense. Yeah. I'm sure Booster Gold will have a couple too, but that's kind of how I'm picturing is like Booster Gold could be like more of the Deadpool style for DC.
Just kind of shows up.
Just there for comedic purposes, but instead of being like Deadpool, where Deadpool is like this badass like mutant thing, this guy would just be like, nobody wants him. Like, he sucks. He sucks at his job.
Yeah, he'll show up with technology that like doesn't fit for what they're doing.
It'll be funny to actually see like scenes where people in the town are like, this is the fucking guy you sent to save me.
This is who we have.
I'd rather die.
I'd rather just be gone.
And James Gunn, one thing about him is he is a funny guy. So if anybody can lead a really funny television series, I actually do believe it's him.
Yeah.
But other than that, there's not really much more to say on this one.
No.
Which is why I want to move into the next one, which I don't personally have a lot to say on, but I know Mark does. And that is the Swamp Thing film that's coming out. We're not sure when, but at some point in this chapter 1. And I like the director that's doing it, James Mangold. He's done a lot of great films. Logan, for example, The Wolverine. He did Indiana Jones, The Dial of Destiny, which actually was a good film. Mm-hmm. And he did Ford versus Ferrari, which is an excellent film too.
Yeah,
so this guy
it's not just superhero movies that he's done. Like, he has a whole different slate under him that could somehow relate and work.
And arguably, he's made the best superhero movie with Logan.
Yeah.
So it's like this guy has a good reputation from what I see, and I trust him 100% because I've pretty much liked almost all the movies he's been a part of. He's even helping with Deadpool and Wolverine.
Yep.
So this guy's really good. And with the Swamp Thing film, the only thing that I really know about it is that it's going to focus on the origins of the character. It's expected to be one of the darker films with gothic horror elements, and it's supposed to take inspiration from Alan Moore's classic The Saga of Swamp Thing comics. But that's really all I know. I'm not like a major Swamp Thing fan. I think he's cool, but I've just never really been... I'm not like a big monster fan in general, but a little funny story how I know Mark likes Swamp Thing so much is because when he used to hang out at my house and play Injustice 2, that was the only character he'd ever play as. Mm-hmm. He was literally trying to beat every tower as Swamp Thing.
Yep.
So, Mark, I leave it to you. What do you want?
So, going off the Alan Moore saga, it's, from what I've read, I haven't read the comics, but I think I might actually invest in them and read them. It's very dark, but the way he writes things is just like a whole different perspective on a comic. So I think if they take inspiration from that and use his dark elements, that's where you're going to get that horror aspect from. But then if you also look back at the 2019 TV series that they did, which I don't understand why it got canceled. I thought it was pretty good. It wasn't dark and gory type horror, but it was jump scare type horror, and then it kind of went along with the story and they made it fit. But the way that they portrayed it, like, they make him seem like he's the bad guy, when in reality, like, he's trying to do the right thing after he had become Swamp Thing. And I think if you can't really take a show and make it a movie. Like, there's things you got to cut out, things you got to change. So I don't think they're going to take any inspiration from that show. I think it's all going to come from that guy's books. But if you go the route and make it where he seems like the villain the whole movie and have it be that dark, scary story where, like, he just kind of pops up out of nowhere because he can, as long as you're by a swamp or by water or by a forest, like, he can kind of just, he's there. If you take that inspiration and then as the movie goes on and you learn more about him, I think that's where they'll flip it and have it be, he's really not a bad guy. He's just trying to basically save the world in regards of, like, nature. And I think that's where he'll fit in with the monsters, gods and monsters, because he is almost both. He's like a god of the swamp, basically, but he's also a terrifying monster. But I think if they go the scary route, like we said with Batman, like the scary version of the Joker that I envision is the Arkham games, I think if you go with that, like, it almost has to be like a dark, scary movie.
That's true. I mean, I think taking the horror element of it will definitely be interesting, especially since Doctor Strange 2 kind of flopped in that sense, where they were hyping it up as this horror movie, and it didn't really end up being that at all.
Yeah, and I think his the Swamp Thing character fits more for that. Of
Definitely, because he is a monster.
Scary, yeah. You know,
and like you said, he's kind of a god because he's like the god of nature on Earth.
Yeah, and
like, he's not really a bad character. It's just you fuck with nature, he's gonna come kill you.
Yeah, he's basically like what's his name? The bear. Smokey the Bear? Smokey the Bear.
Smokey the Bear?
Yeah.
One that will actually, like, put the fruits through your inner.
Yeah. Like, you could honestly almost have it be like a Camp Crystal Lake environment where, like, these kids show up, start breaking shit and leaving garbage and, like, doing all the shit that, you know, stirs him up. They encounter him, and then it becomes this whole thing where wherever that camp is, like, the town is now stuck trying to get rid of him or figure out what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really curious to see how this film's going to be, but I like the idea of a horror movie in the middle of all this. The one thing that I got to give James Gunn a lot of credit for is the fact that all of these sound completely different from the last.
Yes.
They don't sound like we're going to be seeing the same things over and over again, which kind of happened with Marvel in a sense, where all their movies kind of fell into a formula almost, and maybe now the formula is starting to dry up and get kind of old. But, you know, people kind of make fun of Marvel writing and humor these days instead of, like, really enjoying it. Mm-hmm. So I think it's smart of James Gunn to do it this way, where every project is going to have its own flavor and its own, like, heartbeat, basically, in the chapter.
Well, and
it's supernatural, which I said is good.
Yeah. When it's like every single thing that we've talked about is completely different than the last, it's almost like he could be doing this as like a trial run. Like, all right, what stuck and what didn't? Like, okay, this didn't work. We'll try that again later. These 4 different versions of characters worked. We'll stick with this and make this, you know, kind of like the formula moving forward and use these aspects.
That's exactly what he's doing. It seems like he's just throwing all of his unique ideas at the wall and seeing what sticks, which is good. I mean, and DC needs creativity more than anything right now, and that's what he can bring to the table.
Yeah.
And the next series we're going to talk about is also, it's different in the sense because it's Blue Beetle, which there was a film that came out last year about Blue Beetle, but that was like a weird film. I don't think it did bad, but it didn't necessarily do good either. It was
kind of just there. Yeah.
I never went and saw it because, again, I just don't care about the end of the DCU, so I just didn't give a shit.
I think it was one of those movies I threw on one day when I was at home and like had nothing to do but like didn't really pay attention to it.
Yeah, I mean, Blue Beetle is kind of a strange character to begin with. But I personally like what he's going to do here because he's going to bring back Blue Beetle. It's supposed to be a soft reboot of the 2023 film. So he's going to bring back Blue Beetle, and all the cast wants to come back. So it's probably going to be the same cast, but they're going to bring it back in an animated form. And I think Blue Beetle, with all of the sci-fi aspects to him,
I think animated works. Yeah.
Because I never saw the film, but just from watching the trailers, I thought the CGI just didn't look good.
Well, it's because they use a library and they're cheap.
Yeah, it just didn't look good. So, in an animated form, Blue Beetle, I think this could be a really cool series. And I'm looking forward to it, actually, because I've always liked Blue Beetle as a character. It's just, he's never really had anything that made me want to really watch. He's always just kind of been a good little side character. Like, he was fun to play as in Injustice 2. So I like the idea behind him, and I think animated form.
That's the only reason I even know who he is.
Right. So I'm looking forward to it. I think it'll be cool. The last film we have to talk about, though, is one that they just announced in March. This was not part of the original slate. Same with Blue Beetle, that wasn't either. But this one is bigger than that because it's not a TV show. It's not an animated series. It's a full-on film of Teen Titans. everybody loves Teen Titans. I think everybody in our age group are Teen Titans fans. And there's one reason why we love Teen Titans, and that was the Cartoon Network show from the 2000s.
Not the Teen Titans Go.
That's what, yeah, not Teen Titans Go. Even though I think Teen Titans Go is funny from what I've seen.
Yeah, my only thing that I have to say about this is, one, I can't wait to see it. Two, it needs to wipe the memory of Teen Titans Go off the earth. Oh, and...
it doesn't need to do that for me.
Yeah, it does. The fact that Cartoon Network only... No, Cartoon Network played Teen Titans Go all day, every day. You had so many other cartoons you could have played, and you played that all day, every day. The only reason I know that is because I'd fall asleep watching Adult Swim, I'd wake up, it would be Uncle Grandpa at like 5 in the morning, and all of a sudden it'd be Teen Titans Go, and I'd be like, okay, well, I don't gotta go to work, what else comes on in the next hour? It was Teen Titans Go from 8 a.m. till 8 p.m. It's garbage.
It was their highest rated show.
No, it wasn't.
You say
no.
Teen Titans has ruled Cartoon Network for 2 generations. Just be happy about that.
This generation doesn't count. Also, fun fact.
One, I mean, yeah, I'd rather throw on my Teen Titans any day.
Yes.
And I've watched that entire show a few years ago. I went back, I bought the seasons, and I watched the whole thing. And it was incredible. The show was just as good as I remembered it being. And I'm still waiting on them to make like a season 6, because I heard they were going to do a season 6 for Adult Swim of that Teen Titans show, but they never ended up doing it, unfortunately. But when it comes to this film, they've done other adaptations of Teen Titans, but there's that live action show that's just called Titans, and it sucks. I don't like it. And maybe it doesn't exactly suck. It's just not the Teen Titans I want. Why do Teen Titans have to be serious?
Yeah.
No. Everybody fell in love with Teen Titans because it was fun. That's why I think film needs to be fun. It needs to be like taking the cartoon and putting it in live action. Give it a Guardians of the Galaxy vibe. Where it's Guardians? Guardians of the Galaxy vibe, where, they have this chemistry, this ragtag group of misfits, and make them teens or young adults.
And
That's all it needs to be.
They don't have to be perfect either. They're teenagers. They're gonna make mistakes.
Yes, let it even be a teenage movie. Why not?
Yeah.
I want to see that. I want this to be the fun film of the bunch. Where Batman can be dark and Superman can be hopeful. Let Teen Titans be just pure fun.
Yeah.
And also, for the love of God, stop forcing Cyborg into the Justice League. He does not fit in the Justice League. He belongs in the fucking Teen Titans. You leave him there, and you better be in there.
Thank you. That's what I was going to say.
I need to hear a booyah in my Teen Titans film.
Yeah, he can't not be in there. Also, fun fact, the rapper Lil Yachty voiced Jon Stewart in Teen Titans Go.
There you go. See? Teen Titans Go, making waves.
Oh, yeah. And Stan Lee, I guess, was in it somewhere.
That's interesting. The only thing I fear for this movie, though, is that... So, did you ever watch Young Justice?
Same thing, when it was on TV, I watched it, but it was one of those things, if I missed an episode, I didn't really know what I missed. So it's something I definitely have to go back and rewatch.
Now, the only thing I have to say is I hope they're not going to take this a Young Justice route, because even though I like that show, it becomes too hard to follow with too many characters. And they tried to shove every sidekick into that show, and it just, by season 3, it was a mess, because there's so many characters and stories you have to keep track of. I want this film to just be the base popular Teen Titans. All I want is Raven, Robin, Cyborg, Starfire, and Beast Boy. That's all I want to see. Add the other ones later, but not in this first film. No. Let the first film just be the core Teen Titans that we know.
Or even, take a page out of, every movie does it now, but even at the end have an end credit scene where you introduce 2 more people that we might see.
And I mean,
if there's another film.
When I say Robin, I really meant to say Nightwing, Dick Grayson, Nightwing.
Yeah.
You could kind of take a page out of the animated films and throw Damian in there with Nightwing trying to kind of be like his big brother, and it's kind of funny. But that could be something you do in a second one. Doesn't have to be the first. I just want the core Teen Titans in the first one.
Yeah, this first one should just be a fun movie.
That's all it needs to be.
This movie should be their nostalgia grab movie.
Oh, yeah. This is the one you need it to be, nostalgia grab, because everybody has nostalgia for those Teen Titans.
Yeah.
The Cartoon Network ones. And that's what they need to adapt. So I hope that's what they do.
Yes.
I'm not 100% sure. Yeah.
Just to show how much Teen Titans caught people's attention, as we like to call her on the podcast, Jenny Truth said she will go see this movie. She's like, I don't know anything about it, but I will go see it because I love Teen Titans.
Exactly. Like, Teen Titans wasn't just popular with superhero fans. Like, it transcended everybody. I had cousins, friends who didn't like superheroes that watched Teen Titans because it was fun. Like, that's what this needs to be. It needs to be a lighthearted, fun film, not this morbid Titans bullshit that we've been getting these last few years. Well, that's really all we have to say. We went over everything on the DCU. Mark, do you have any final thoughts you want to get off your chest before we wrap this up?
Well, I had the final thought 2 topics ago where I said, like, I feel like his breakdown is, all these things are completely different, and he's kind of throwing them out there and going to see what sticks. And then if it doesn't, he's kind of not going to scrap it. Be like, okay, this is the formula moving forward. I think if he goes that route with these, I think that's a great way to show his creativity and possibly usher in that new wave of superhero movies that are kind of dying.
Definitely, I think
he's going to figure out a new formula for what works.
Yeah. DC has this outline has potential to have a couple blow-ups in it.
Yeah.
And it'll be interesting to see which blow-up, if any. Maybe some people are just done with DC and don't care. That could be the case too.
They're so checked out, yeah.
It could be the case too, because DC movies have been notoriously bad for over a decade. So that means that this generation of kids has grown up thinking DC sucks.
Yeah.
So that could play a factor, but I don't think that's going to be the case, because a lot of these are so unique that they're going to stand out when people see a trailer or even a logo for them.
Yeah. Or they might not even know, like with the Swamp Thing one, like they might not even know it's a DC character. They just might think like, oh, this is an interesting looking horror film, and then find out it's DC because, mention of Batman and Superman are in it. And it's like, oh shit, maybe I need to go watch these other things that came out and know what's going on.
It also seems like something that I kind of like is he's taking chances with certain characters, like a Swamp Thing, that probably isn't going to fit in the overall arcing story. Like I think some of these are just going to be independent things that they might keep going and keep separate from Superman and Batman and all. Like,
right, just might be a whole separate version.
Yeah, I don't think everything's building up to this Justice League film, but that's cool. Not everything has to.
No, you don't have to follow what Marvel did and be like every character we've encountered leads up to one final battle. Like they can be there, but they won't be there for the final battle, and then a couple years down the line, you kick off another movie of Swamp Thing that's in a complete, not different timeline, but like those things happen, but it didn't affect him.
Yeah, and I mean, that's kind of been part of the issue with Marvel recently, is they're putting out so much content. Nobody has time to keep up with all this or cares about all of it, yet they want you to see all of it to understand what's coming next.
Yeah.
Like, DC needs to not repeat that, and they kind of need to tell us what you need to see. Like, they should be like, you need to see Superman, Lanterns, Batman to understand the Justice League movie.
Yeah, everything else. If you don't care about the Justice League movie, you don't have to see them. You can watch these other options we have.
We have Swamp Thing. We have Creature Commandos. We have all these unique things that are their own thing at the same time.
Yeah.
So I hope that's what happens. My only real final thought, or just final thing I wanted to say, is that James Gunn also confirmed that they're going to be making video games. They have video games in development that are actually somewhat relevant or tying into Chapter 1. So it'll be interesting to see what video games come of this. There's nothing confirmed. It's just that there's a couple in development and unannounced. So I'm looking forward to see whatever that is.
Yeah, see when they announce that.
And yeah, I mean, just my final thoughts on James Gunn. I already kind of talked about how I'm a little skeptical because he has so many ideas, and I don't know if
he's got that filter.
I don't know if he's the Kevin Feige that can have all of this play into an overarching story. I'm not sure if he is that guy, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say I think James Gunn is going to do a good job. I think he knows that. I think he knows how much is riding on him for DC. Because if this blows up, like
they're done.
This blows up. Yeah, if this blows up in their face, DC's fucked. Like they will never come back from this. I don't know. They'll have to wait another 10 years.
Yeah, like they can still put films out, but no one's gonna care.
The only thing people are gonna care about is like things like the Joker, the Batman films, like the Elseworld stuff. But yeah. Anything that's part of the main universe, like, people already don't care. So you have to make sure that this delivers. Not everything's going to deliver. I'm sure there's going to be hits, and I'm sure there's going to be misses. But overall, I have a good feeling about this, especially after going over it and talking about it. I have a better feeling about it now than I did even just going into the podcast. So that's really my final thoughts. I'm going to go out on a limb and say he's going to do a good job. Maybe I'll come back to the show and eat my words, but
and be like, "Oh shit, they fucked up." Yeah,
I think he's gonna do it as long as he can avoid copying the MCU, and as long as he can keep bringing the creativity and just be different than instead of similar to. I think DC is on the right track.
Yeah, well, I would also throw in don't copy, but also don't try to compete either.
That's the last thing they need to do because the competition is what killed the Snyderverse.
Yeah.
Like you were saying, they tried playing catch up so fast. They tried all the build up that we got to lead up to Avengers, they tried to do in 3 movies.
Yeah.
And it didn't work. Doesn't work. We need to get familiar with these characters. And it's interesting to see that we don't have a Flash movie for this. There's a lot of characters they've held back on that we'll probably see introduced in Chapter 2.
Yeah, because you don't need them yet.
Yeah, this seems to be like a slow grind, and I think that's exactly what DC needs. Like maybe in 10 years, maybe we don't get a Justice League movie for 10 years, but that might be exactly what they need.
Yeah.
So that's my final thoughts. Do you have anything left you want to add in, Mark?
No, I think I got it all out there.
All right, well, that is our FireTruth of James Gunn's DCU slate. We hope you enjoyed our ideas. If you did, we'd love if you hit us up at FireTruthCast on X, Instagram, even TikTok we have, I know. So, is it at FireTruthCast on TikTok? Did you ever figure that out?
I think I was able to get that, yes. Let me check. Okay. Yeah, FireTruth Cast. There's no it's just FireTruth Cast.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure all of our socials are at just FireTruth Cast, which I love the fact that we were able to get that handle for everything. So if you want to hit us up, go ahead. Please like, subscribe if you're on YouTube. We'd really appreciate that. We'd really appreciate a comment, too, if you have anything to criticize about us. You know, if you want to criticize my Superman synopsis, go ahead. I'd love to see it. But overall, that was the end of our thoughts. Next week, we're going to be doing our discussion and wrapping up Star Wars The Acolyte, episodes 6 through 8. I know Mark is going to have a lot to say about this, as he teased earlier. And I'm looking forward to doing it. So I hope all of you guys have a good day, night, morning, wherever you're listening to this. And we'll see you on the next one.
Insert outro music if we had it.